Happy Friday, everyone. This is Everything's Relative podcast. I'm your host, Eve Sturgis, and we are here to explore all the ways the DNA results are messing with people. I'm going to keep this intro short today for episode 6 because I want to get right into it with Barbara. She has it was a sad but beautiful story, and we actually talked for hours. So I did a ton of editing this time around, a little bit for time, and also a bit to protect Barbara, who came to me with such an open heart and so much vulnerability. I'm so appreciative of her honesty and bravery. So let's stop listening to me talk about it and just get right into my rainy day last February that I spent with Barbara. This is Everything's Relative. I'm Eve Sturgis, and this is episode 6. So you just came from a meetup with other NPEs. How was that?
Correct.
Was that your first one?
No, this is not my first meeting with NPEs. This is my third or fourth, and I enjoyed it. We met up in Fountain Valley. We were a small group tonight.
I noticed a lot of people said on the Facebook group they couldn't come.
Normally it's larger, but yeah, a lot of people. I think also the weather probably contributed to that. But it was still nice because when it's a smaller group, it's easier to share. And I don't mind the large groups either. Either way is good to just talk with people
they both bring different
people
things
that,
to the experience.
and you know, listening to other people's stories, other people that get what you're going through, because what a lot of people don't realize is, I mean, they just don't understand.
They just don't understand.
No.
It's so true.
No, they don't. And, you know, my family, my husband has tried, but he just doesn't know what to say to me. And my kids, they're like, whatever, Mom. They never, only my one son knew my mother, and he's 36, and my mother's been gone for a long time. So he never knew my dad's. I never knew the dad. But, yeah, so, and then my siblings I have a lot of siblings that I grew up with, and I'm the youngest, and they don't like to talk about it. As a matter of fact, I don't even speak to the 3 oldest ones anymore.
Because of this?
Yeah, we already had a strained relationship, but now it's really strained.
Yeah.
Because of this. And I don't want to say negative things, about my family. They're not here to defend themselves, but it's like, it's been rough. And I think they believe I should just be happy that I had a dad at all and just get on with it. And I think they feel like when I talk about it, I'm disrespecting our mother or I'm embarrassing the family. And I don't see it that way because I still love my mom a lot. I'm not saying I didn't get angry.
Right? I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure you did, but I guess I shouldn't assume.
I'm screaming at the ceiling, like, how could you do this? What did you do? But I'll never have those answers.
Right.
So, because they're all gone.
That feels like that might be the most frustrating element for so many people, is that not only is there a surprise result, but then there's no answers because nobody knows.
And I wasn't looking for this.
Right. So tell me what happened.
Well, I've always been the ancestry person in our family. I've always been the one that's been putting together our family tree. Ever since I was young, I've always been interested in who was in the photos and putting the photo albums together. And in the 80s, I found an aunt long lost aunt, and that was without internet. And that was just using phone books and operators. And I have to say that our family is my parents. We're Canadian, and I'm a first generation American. And so they immigrated here. And so I have dual citizenship. But
cool.
All my relatives live in either Canada or England. We are the only ones. My siblings and their children and that live here. Nobody else lives in the U.S. With the family I grew up with. So my dad had always said, we're mostly English, but we have a little Irish and Scottish. And I knew my mother's grandfather was German, but the rest were all British. So I said, well, let's see how British we are. So I decided to do the ancestry test I believe it was 2015. And it didn't come out with any surprises. I came out like, 73% British, which I expected. I didn't see any German. That kind of blew me away. But they have since revised it and added 25% German, which would account for my mother's side.
Oh, so they found German the next time you did it?
Well, yeah. What happens though is Ancestry keeps updating their information, and as it updates, it can change your ancestry.
But you don't have to retest again? It will just look at what you've got and based on that data?
Right. They keep getting the new data, and so now I actually have the German in there along with, instead of just the English, I also have some Scottish, Irish, and French. Which
it's like an operating system.
Yeah, and even
crazy.
And Sweden, and I was like, Sweden, where does that come from? So that's, because I never heard Sweden before, but there was no red flags in that.
Right.
But I did see a bunch of names, because when you do your ancestry, they give you a list of matches to your DNA. And when I looked on there, I didn't recognize any names.
And those matches, I'm sorry, I haven't actually gone on Ancestry.com. I clearly need to if I'm going to continue talking with people. But there are people that have done the test as well.
Correct.
So if no one you're related to ever in the history of the world has submitted to Ancestry.com, nothing would come up.
Correct.
Okay.
They have to have done the ancestry test, or at least have, there's other people that test too. You've heard of 23.
Yeah, sure, I know.
But I went through Ancestry, and they did give you a list of matches, and they go by, they give you what the probable relationship is, but they also have a thing called centimorgans.
Yeah, I see that on the groups. But
and it also goes with cross DNA segments. So I saw names on there that said first to second cousins, and I didn't recognize the names. And of course, it goes way down, third, fourth, fifth, sixth cousins. But I thought I knew who all my first cousins were, at least on my dad's side, because my mother only had one brother, and he had never had any children. So I just kind of looked and thought, well, who are these people? But to be honest with you, I never doubted my parentage. I always felt different as a kid. So I have to say this. I always used to say, I must be adopted. And I used to ask my sister, are you sure you saw Mom pregnant with me? Are you sure I didn't get mixed up at the hospital?
Did you really?
Yes, because I felt different. Not that... It's because I look different a little bit. We all, are fair complected, but I just felt I'm very emotional. And they're all more pragmatic and analytical, and I'm the opposite. I'm all emotional and about feelings and keeping the peace. And I don't know, I thought, well, maybe it's just because I'm the youngest and I was a big mama's girl. And so there was, I always had, and then I got sent to my grandmother's a lot, and they didn't. And I used to think, how come I have to go? It's not that I didn't love my grandmother, and I didn't mind going, but it was like, you're all alone there for weeks and weeks at a time.
You get sent there for a long time.
Yes. And I would question, how come, not when I was really little, but as I got older, and then when I was older, why did I only get sent? And my one sibling, my sister who's closest to me in age, said, Mom was saving you. I said, saving me from what? And I always just felt I was being abandoned, So I have issues with abandonment because of it. And so anyways, getting back to my DNA, I didn't have any interest or concern because I thought my dad's my dad, my mom's my mom, and nobody's ever said otherwise. And finally, I think maybe 6 months later, I finally said, I'm going to reach out to the person on the top of the list and ask, because maybe he's a cousin I don't know about, that maybe my Aunt Phyllis, who died in the 60s, maybe when her and my uncle were getting divorced, maybe she was a bad girl. I don't know. And, this is a secret love child. I don't know. That's where I was going. And so I messaged him.
Little did you know.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know I was going to be. So I messaged him on Ancestry, and he said he had no clue how we were related. And that was it. So I left it alone, and I didn't bother with it for like a year. He was the one who started researching.
Oh.
And then he finally started contacting me, asking me just random questions through Ancestry. So he doesn't have my direct name. He doesn't even know my name. And my profile is protected.
Okay.
Matches can see my chart, but they cannot see my name. Anybody who's alive.
Okay.
It's just private.
Okay.
So, and I don't use my real name. on Ancestry.
Okay.
I have a private name
Okay.
that nobody would know.
I want to ask you what it is, but you can't
No,
tell
I don't
me.
want to tell you. But
Don't tell me.
I'll just tell you that everybody, he was referring to me as a name that was not mine. And I didn't correct him at first, but he first came out with a short message, do you live in California? And I was like, yes, but I didn't ever specify anything. Another was, do you live in Southern California? Yes. Were you born like between 1959 or 60, 61? And I'm like, yes. And finally, what it really freaked me out was when he asked me, did you live in or around or near Alhambra?
It's like 20 questions.
Yeah, but all like
But
little
really
short. And I'm like,
personal ones.
yeah, and I was getting a little,
Right. Like creepy
yeah,
20
I'm thinking
questions.
like, who is this person and why is he, I knew who he was on my ancestry, but I'm like, how did he know about Alhambra? Because it's not on my profile and my name's, and then.
And no one knows about Alhambra.
No, well, they do now. And they,
Everybody, Alhambra is in Southern California,
Yes.
east of Los Angeles.
and yeah, it's right on the border. I grew up right on the border, not too far from Cal State. And so, yeah, I said, yeah. And then he says, thanks. And I'm like, what was that all about? So now I'm like, what the heck? And I called my sister and she's like, don't trust it. You don't know. It could be a scam. And I'm like, yeah, it could be. So finally he decided to inform me. He says, okay, because he kept asking me more little questions. And I just finally said, what is going on?
Right.
What, I'm not comfortable telling you or sharing with you anymore. I want to know what you know and what is going on.
I think that's fair.
And I didn't quite say it that way. I said it a little nicer. And we're still just messaging through Ancestry. He doesn't even know my name yet. And so he finally says, well, I have some information to tell you that I think's going to rock your world.
Oh.
And
Okay.
And those were his exact words, rock your world. And I thought, rock my world? Why would it rock my world because I'm still thinking it's an aunt or an uncle that was bad. And,
Right.
And this is their illegitimate
You're like,
child.
fourth cousins don't rock others' worlds.
Yeah, well, actually, he's showing as a first to second cousin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
high match. And
So high match.
he
Got
says,
it.
and he pointed that out to me in one of his messages. Our Centimorgans are too high for us not to be closely related. So that's why he dug. Well, it turned out he told me, I realize you're weary about this, and you're leery. And finally, he identified what he did for a living. And he says, I do this, and he does not live in the state of California. I'm going to use his first name. His first name is Ken.
Okay.
But he is an attorney for the state he lives in.
Okay.
He works for the state as an attorney. And so I think he was trying to get, and he, sent me his business phone number. He sent me, so that I would feel more comfortable knowing that he wasn't a scammer.
Right.
Or
like he has a legitimate business.
Yeah,
He
no, so
doesn't need to
Right, so
scam
I did
people.
look him up. I
Sure,
I looked
totally.
him up, and he sent me his picture, and then I matched it with looking him up, and yeah, okay, he is an attorney, and he does work for the state he lives in. He works in, he's an attorney in the state, so I said, okay, so he's legit, and so then I said, I'm going to give you my private email, because he started to tell me things. So I gave him, I used to have 3 emails back then. So I thought, okay, if he's a scammy, I can just delete this email.
Right.
So I gave him one of my email addresses and then finally told him my real name, my first name. And I said, you've been calling me this, but this is my actual name. And then he proceeded to tell me the family history and that I was one of 2 men's daughter, that he believed, that I was one of his uncle's children. And I just was in total disbelief.
Right.
Because I'm like, no, my dad's my dad, and this can't be true. And I'm reading this, and I'm really upset. I mean, I'm like, who does this to somebody? This is a horrible thing to say to me. But I didn't.
Who just dumps this information?
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to be very tactful, and he did work up to it over like 6 months. This wasn't something that just happened all in a week. And so after I read his very long email, I got really upset. I didn't answer him. And I immediately called my sister. That's the next, we'll just call her Jay. And I told her what happened. And she goes, oh, it's got to be a scam. Send me everything. I'm gonna check them out. So I sent her everything, and she started checking it out. And then I got more information from him. He even sent photos. And I'm like freaking out now. And now I'm crying. Now I'm really distraught. And so this went on for 3 days. And finally, my sister says, look, I don't know anything. As far as I know, you're mom and dad's kid. Because I was even questioning if I was my mom's kid at that point.
Yeah.
I said,
I totally relate to that feeling of just like maybe it's all different. Maybe it's all something I don't understand or no.
I said, did they maybe mix me up at the hospital? Because this man lived in Alhambra where I lived. And I asked for his address. I asked for his blood type. And he's like, and I said, look, you asked me weird questions. Right. My turn. Blood type. I wouldn't know his blood type. And I said, well, ask his son what are his blood types.
That's so funny because that was one of my questions too, was about blood type. I don't know my blood type, but I was like, and what's his blood type?
Yeah, no.
I needed to know.
I had a reason for my madness though, because when I was a teenager, I became ill and I was in the hospital. And I remember the doctors telling my mother my blood type. And my mother was dumbfounded because she said there was no way that could be my blood type. And I'm going to share my family's blood type. My brothers and sisters and my mother and my father were all A positive. Oh. And I was B negative.
Right.
And that's not possible.
That's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so my mother knew that as a teenager, when I was a teenager, but I didn't, I saw the look like she was like, and then I knew at that, now looking back to that moment, which to me as a teenager didn't think anything about it. I remember. So I think she knew at that point.
So she may not have Well, it
was a 50-50.
No, right.
Right. It was a 50-50. I'm dad's, and I looked enough like her to pass. I mean, and so anyways, I said I needed more DNA proof from him, that I wasn't satisfied with just cousins. Mm-hmm. I needed, so he said, well, you're either this person's or this person's, but I think you're this person's. And it's so strange because my biological father and my birth certificate father both have the same first name. Both had blonde hair growing up. Both had blue eyes. Both balded early, receding hair.
Wow.
Both of their hair turned brown. The difference was where they came from. Different, he was an American where my father came from Canada. And then my grandparents were all from England. So we were English and Canadian. And I'm just like, so I guess my mother had a type.
Right.
And I did ask my siblings to test for further proof. None of my siblings would test. Oh. I have 5 brothers and sisters, and not one of them would come forward and test for me. They said absolutely not. And they got really angry with me. And I won't go into all the details since they're not here to defend themselves, but it was very hurtful.
That would really hurt me.
It's really strained my relationship with them. My 2 eldest siblings reacted the harshest. Mm-hmm. I won't even go into that. But let me just put it this way. I no longer speak to the 3 eldest.
I don't eat. Did they... Wow, it just... Okay.
No,
I'm dumbfounded,
They feel I'm disrespecting our mother, but my eldest sister just can't handle the drama. And, my one brother said I should just be happy. And my other brother said, this is just crazy. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't care what happens in your life. Don't call me anymore. And because I was really distraught.
Yeah.
And they felt I was being so disrespectful to our mother. But I wasn't. I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything wrong.
They were elder. I mean, they're all a lot older than me. So I thought they must know something.
Maybe.
And that's why I spoke to them. My sister did warn me, don't talk to the others, just keep it between us. And I should have listened to her, but I didn't. And but I waited 3 days before I contacted them. And then, of course, it was really horrible. Their reaction was very bad. And so I no longer...
This whole idea is just too much for them.
They can't cope. Even my sister that does talk to me can't handle speaking about this anymore because she feels it brings such negativity to the conversation. So I really don't talk about it with my family now. I just rely on my friends. But my new family, so my nieces tested. I didn't know they were my nieces at the time. And they came out pretty high match. So their father tested. And, of course, it came out really high. And too high to be a first cousin. So we knew at that point who my father was. His name is John George. And my real father, John George, and my dad I thought was my real dad was also John. It was John Kenneth.
Okay, I was like, tell me he's not
And
John
I'm
George,
married,
too.
no, and I'm married to a John.
I was going to scream.
Johns are, it's funny because even up to this point in my life, before I found this out, Johns have been a running theme in my life. I've always had a John in my life, whether it was my dad, uncles, grandfathers, all the line of my dad is just, except one, just all Johns. I'm married to a John. Both my sisters married a John.
Oh, wow.
3 of my nieces married Johns.
Wow.
Whether it's the variation John, Jonathan, or, and then my mother's mom, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, her father was Johann, which is another form of John.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that my new biological father, his brother, he named his son John. My brother was now John, and he named his kids John. My husband is John, my stepson is John, and my father-in-law is John.
This is like...
Yeah, and all my grandparents on that line with my new dad, they're all John.
It's like being John Malkovich or something.
Yeah, they're all
It's
Johns.
just like a thing about where you like open the door and there's the
Yeah.
same pictures inside and it just goes and goes and goes or something.
Yeah, and so I said, I know it's got to be true now. Because
Yeah.
they're all Johns.
Of course.
It's been in
No
my
more
whole
testing
life.
needed.
You know, it's been my whole life. And so I accepted it. And the part that was hard, though, was I was so afraid my new family would now reject me.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't take any more rejection. I'd already felt like I was not, you don't know who you are. Am I this? Am I that? Is that really my mom? I mean, I felt like my whole life was a lie.
And already questioning things because of being sent away to your grandma's.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then these older siblings that have had a different experience than you and they won't help.
No, they wouldn't help. So I had to reach out to a first cousin. My father had some brothers and sisters, and they don't live in the U.S., so I had to contact him. He lives in Canada. And I asked him if he would test, because his mother and my dad are brother and sister. And, of course, him and I did not match. So he was how I got proof for the paternal side. We did not match at all.
Right. Oh.
And that was really upsetting.
Yeah.
And he did the ancestry just like me, and... but then I couldn't find any matches to my mother either. So I was really upset thinking maybe my mom's, and this is when I was grilling everybody and they thought I was disrespectful. But I said, are you sure I wasn't, maybe swapped at the hospital as a baby?
Right.
Alhambra back then was pretty small. And, but I finally found a third cousin that we share the same great-great-grandparents. Uh-huh. That is in my mother's line.
Well,
so I know now my mom is my mom because
your mom
my
is your mom.
siblings won't test.
I feel like part of the strange experience is since this thing was previously unfathomable. It was unfathomable, and now it is suddenly scientifically proven.
Right.
Anything could be possible.
Yeah.
So why not switch to the hospital? Right. Why not picked up off the side of the road, found in a basket in a river? Like, it could be anything.
Yes, it could be.
And people don't understand that, like, it's like your brain opens up a whole new section, and it may sound...
And life was tough growing up.
Crazy,
I'm not going to lie. It was hard growing up in our house. We were a family of secrets, and it turns out that carried on into, whatever went on at home, we were not allowed to tell our friends. You didn't even discuss it with our own family. Everything was stiff upper lip, keep it to yourself. We don't share our problems, not even with each other. I grew up in a household like that, and my siblings are pretty much still that way.
Yeah.
But I guess I broke that mold a lot.
Right.
One sister does too. I guess we're more, but I'm even more so than her. And so, it was a difficult childhood. I kept questioning, so why would my mother do this? What was her motivation? But you lie to yourself so long and you hide the truth of your upbringing for so long. You don't want to face the painful realities of that your household was, my father drank a lot, and he was quite physically and emotionally abusive to my mother.
Oh, that's so
and
hard.
This is all conjecture on my part because I do not know anything because my father died. The father I know died in 1973. My biological father died in 1987 in Monrovia, Gosh,
Okay.
not far from
Yeah,
where I live.
He didn't go
He
far.
moved,
Yeah.
he moved from Alhambra to Monrovia. And then my mother died in 1992. So I will never have those
You'll
answers.
never have those answers.
I'll never know. But I do wonder what her motivation was. And I thought, well, gosh, Barbara, your dad was so abusive and criticized her and put her down. And I don't doubt that my dad loved my mother, but it was a control thing. And he did change in the last year of his life when he was dying. He became a much nicer person and didn't do that. And that's the man I like to remember. But I'd like to believe that she just felt so lonely and brokenhearted that she was reaching out for some kind of comfort.
To the affair, like the motivation to.
I don't want to think the
have this
worst,
affair, right.
because I have to tell you, my mother is not the type that you would think of doing or having an affair. Like, first of all, when did she have time? She didn't drive back then. She had 5 kids already. And, I mean, my dad was just there, when he wasn't working. And she didn't drive, so she'd have to walk, unless they came to the house. And I think the kids would notice. And I don't know how it all happened, how it went about, but I'm just assuming that she was seeking comfort. I prefer to believe that than, because a lot of mothers tell their MPs, oh, I was raped.
Right.
Or I was attacked.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't know. So my little mind likes to believe that she needed comfort and love, and she sought it out through him, and that's what I tell myself. And I spoke to my new brother, and it was hard for them too, because they're like, and he's much older than me. He's 76 now, and John. And
the brother.
Yeah, another John. And he told me things about my dad I wanted to know, and I said, can you tell me anything about him? And what I heard was he was just like my dad, my other dad. So I don't know what my mother...
Right.
She, like I said, she must have had a type.
She had a type.
And I asked him, is there anybody in the family who can tell me anything else? I said, because I like to look for the positive in people. I like to form my own opinion of someone. I'll never get to meet him. And I thought, well, gosh, he was a womanizer and he drank too, so what the heck? I just left it at that, and I don't ask any more questions because nobody can give me any answers.
And there's no way to cross-check, like, what he was doing in Alhambra that would have crossed paths with your mother. Like, there's no way to even figure out, like...
gosh, I asked.
Like, where was he working that she would have been? Or, like...
Yeah, I was
I'm sure my questions are not original.
I asked them for his address in Alhambra, and I did get it.
Can you list all of the grocery stores and bars that he frequented? Like,
well, they had a lot in common, him and my dad.
Alhambra's not very big.
Fishing. They both belonged to the fishing stuff in Alhambra, and they both liked to go fishing. And my dad was old, telling me about fish when he was dying. And they both, we used to have a man that came to the house and brought us fish. Could it have been him? I was never allowed to go to the door when he was there.
Oh.
And was it somebody my father knew? Was it one of my dad's drinking buddies? Because they told me he used to frequent the bars there at Alhambra, and so did
Right,
my
when
dad.
you said fishing, I thought, oh, maybe they were friends. Maybe the dads were friends. Yeah.
And my father did work for Hostess at one time, so I thought, they told me he was in food wholesale. So I thought, well, maybe they knew each other.
Yeah.
But I'll never know.
Wow.
And then you start remembering things from your childhood. The time when I was a little girl, 3-4 years old, in bed, and parents are fighting. Well, mostly my dad's fighting. My mother just listens. And he's saying, that's not my daughter. It's the postman's. It's the, talking about me.
He's saying that about you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And that memory came back.
It did.
As an adult.
And I kept saying, but at the time even, I was like, why would my dad say that about me? But you're little, you just blow it off.
Right.
And
they say all sorts of things.
Yeah.
That you don't understand.
Yeah. And I just never... I did think of it later in my 30s and 40s, but you don't share it. You just don't say anything. You just say, oh, it was just dad had too much to drink, and he was just mad at mom, and he was trying to make her feel bad. But now I know maybe he was suspected.
Maybe he knew, yeah.
And my one sister said, oh, no, if dad known, he would have killed mom and you. And I'm like, I don't know. But either way, I was his daughter in the end. And he was trying to teach me things, but it's been very hard in the here and now, questioning, and just that nobody understands. And I haven't met any of my new family. because they all live out of state. They all live in the South or the Midwest. Nobody's here in California. And so...
That's far.
Yeah, and they're all in different states, so it's not like I can just...
Can't have a meeting point where everybody could get together.
We would have to have... They have a tendency to have family reunions so many years apart. So hopefully they'll have one and I'll get to go. And I hope I'm welcome to be there. It's just been really hard. I mean, when I told my girlfriend, she was just blown away. And I did do a small little piece with CBS. But we didn't talk about my story or anything, just how hard it was. Because I want other people to realize, you're not alone. And there's a lot of us. The website, the MPE website, it's growing and growing.
So fast.
I mean,
those numbers are climbing so fast.
When I joined, it was under 1,000. And now we're above, 5,000?
5,000, yeah.
And it's insane. And I'm like, and that was I only just joined at the end of June, beginning of July.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just 900
May. I think
to
I
1,000.
came in May or June or something.
Yeah, it was 900 or 1,000, something like that at that time. Maybe even 800. I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I'm fascinated about every facet of the situation, but the fact that there's so many... but every single person is treated as a secret.
Yeah.
So then you can't... I don't know. It's just so incredibly isolating when it turns out there must be someone in the room, someone else in the room who's gone through what you or who gets it or something. It's just a really the isolation is really...
It is hard.
Strange.
And believe it or not, and this is going to sound crazy, but I came from a generation where there was a lot of shame around this. Now, my mother was married, so she wasn't unwed, but, back in the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of shame attached to being,
Oh, yeah.
unmarried, having a child, or having an affair, or being divorced. And so sometimes I feel shame. I feel ashamed. Like I'm the dirty secret. I'm the one that should never have been born. Because I heard, it was hard growing up. I heard a lot of things from my elder siblings, in particular, my brothers, were very cruel. And they won't be happy hearing this, but it's the truth. And I'm not going to hide that secret anymore. I've hid secrets all my life, and I'm done with secrets.
Right. Well, and how else is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Right.
I want to break that cycle.
And I think
they'll never, and this will now cement that they'll never speak to me again.
Well, but, and also the shame.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that your mother, whatever the situation was, I can't imagine that she wasn't struggling with shame around it, right? And had tucked that whole thing away until the blood test when you were in the blood type came out when you were in high school, which probably made shame resurface. And to think of you developing as a fetus in the womb, with all of that shame happening, and there's all these studies now about the kind of things that pass through trauma and experience and emotions that come through that genetics and DNA. So
I have major abandonment issues.
So I just
have
can't
major emotional problems.
I think struggling with shame, it's like the least crazy thing you could feel.
Yeah.
I think.
But it's like,
even if you logically know, I shouldn't feel ashamed. This makes no sense. This isn't my fault.
Exactly.
You've got all these cells in your body that only know that.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, and if you think about how long did you live with your mother? How old were you when?
I was 31 when my mother passed away.
Okay. So first of all, that's very young to lose a mother. But 31 years of loving her and respecting her and knowing, seeing her faults, but knowing what it was to love someone unconditionally.
Yeah, I was a mama's girl.
Right, and you said that.
Yeah, big time mama's
girl. So all
girl.
of that, you've got 31 years of that, and then this new information comes. So, and it's making you think things or feel things that you for 31 years never would have, or of course there's a conflict in your heart about it.
When she was pregnant with me, was she thinking, oh my God, because abortion wasn't legal back then. And I know you shouldn't think those things because I'm here, but I often wondered, did she think about it? Did she wish I would just go away? Was I wanted? Was I just that terrible mistake that she had to put up with because there was no choices? And I know I shouldn't think like that, but I do think that because she was so tired, and she had actually by that time 7 children. 2 had died before I was born. They were stillborn. And here I am, baby number 8, and she lived with an abusive husband, and women didn't have the rights back then. Your husband treated you that way, they'd say, well, what did you do to make him angry? That was how it was back then. There was no women's movement yet.
Are you able to even conceive of what might have been different had they been honest with you about?
Well, when I think about it, I didn't have a dad, and my father died in 1973, and I was angry for a while there because I thought my dad lived nearby. And whether or not my mother knew that, I don't know. But I now know he did.
Like in retrospect.
Yeah.
He may have been around to be present as a man in your life.
Right. Whether or not he was still drinking or whatever. I mean, I like to believe he changed because he did remarry. And I'd like to believe that, as people grow up, they mature and realize. And I wondered what it would be like if he had been in my life. I probably wouldn't have been able to accept it very well when I was younger. But I think over time, with maturity, because like with my mother, when she got married, I was very angry. But once I had my own family and my son, I realized, she can't be alone.
Right.
She needs love. And so I accepted my stepdad. I didn't in the beginning.
Right. With maturity comes empathy, maybe.
Yeah. And then and that's when but I did have to go through on Facebook and unfriend a lot of family because I thought if I ever decide to talk, I don't talk about this on my private Facebook page, but I thought if I am friends now with my brother and my nieces, 1 nephew, and 3 cousins on Facebook. And I thought if anything comes up, they're just going to get all upset. And so it's just better if they don't see it. So I unfriended them since they don't want to talk to me about it anyway.
Right. I mean, if it's not.
And I even unfriended some of their children because I figured they'd run and tell them. Right.
Yeah.
And even though they haven't done anything to me, I just don't want them to tell my siblings. So I just.
Well, even they might. I mean, and I get worried because I also don't say anything about it on Facebook because it's still very secret in my family.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what is going to pop up on someone else's feed, and then they're just going to innocently. They're not even like gossiping about me.
Exactly.
They'll just say to my aunt and uncle, like, "Hey, like, did you know that Eve da da da?" Just something so
true.
innocent that actually a guy, yesterday a guy from high school put on Facebook that he discovered an older brother that he didn't know existed because of 23andMe. And I immediately commented on his thread that just said like, "Hey, I'm doing a podcast, would love to talk to you about it." And I don't know where that showed up in my family's Facebook feed world.
Yeah.
And now realizing 24 hours later, I haven't told them, that I haven't told my parents yet. It's coming in the next.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you haven't.
No, I mean, they know about the NPE part, but I just haven't told them about the podcast launching yet. I just haven't told them. They want to not talk. They want to not talk about it ever again.
Yes, that's how. Yeah,
which is how they all are,
and they're probably the same ages as my oldest siblings.
Yeah, they're in their 60s, and I understand, and it's a wish I can't honor right now.
You know what, though? You have to. This is your story.
Right.
This is our story.
Yeah.
This is our life, our choices now.
Yeah.
And there's been too many secrets, and I think we have the right to tell our own story. I'm sorry if it hurts. I don't know if you feel this way, but I don't want to hurt anybody.
Right. No,
but
I absolutely
my parents
understand.
are all dead, so who am I hurting? I mean, my siblings feel hurt. Well, I'm sorry. But this is my story to tell, not yours.
Right.
And you can't tell me not to share it if I don't want to. Is it widely known? No. I don't share it on my private Facebook page. Only my closest friends and closest family know. I haven't. The one cousin that tested is sworn to secrecy. I feel like I wish I never knew.
Okay.
I almost wish that I I don't want to hurt my new nieces or my brother by saying that, or the new family. I don't want them to think, that I'm not going to appreciate what I could have with them. But
it's not about them.
No, it just caused me a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes wish I'd never done the DNA test. I only did it for fun.
Right.
I never thought I'd find anything. I just did it to see how English I was. Mm-hmm. And never expected this kind of outcome. And I kind of wish I didn't know, but I am embracing. I'm very cautious with the new family, and I know they're cautious with me, mm-hmm. but they said they're very open about the situation. And I'm hoping that maybe they'll be the family I never had.
That's a possibility.
I mean, I don't want to get my hopes up either because I'm so afraid of being hurt and rejected again. And I don't want to be rejected. And I can't really explain that to them because they all seem pretty confident. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like my grandparents on that side were very good people. They grew up. It sounds like the family, with the exception, I read the family memoir. One of the brothers wrote a big memoir about the family, so I read it.
Oh, man. Wish if every family did that, would really change this experience for everybody.
And the only family member that had anything negative was my biological father.
Oh,
and
John the drinker from Alhambra.
Yeah. But, and it's...
Uncle John.
Yeah, but like I said, later on, he came back into their lives, and I think, I know he tried to make amends with my brother. So I am hoping he had his redemption in the end. Mm-hmm. I don't want to come off as a Debbie Downer or negative Sally, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to be very realistic.
You're just being real. I don't think any of this is Debbie Downer.
Yeah, I'm trying to be real, but I don't want to. My sister says talking to me about it is so depressing and she can't handle it. It's like, she says, when I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to Eeyore, and that really hurt.
Oh.
But that's because I'm being real with my sister. I'm telling her how I really feel,
right.
So I guess...
Well, and if you said that you grew up in a family that didn't want to talk about their emotions...
No, they didn't, ever.
They probably meant they didn't want to talk about the quote-unquote negative emotions.
Yeah, but being called Eeyore,
that
really hurt.
It'll probably rain today.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Life is a bummer.
If there was one thing that you want other NPEs or people that are just finding this out, do you think there's anything you would say to them, or you are saying to them, because we're both sort of in the community?
That it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. And even though I feel shame, I was to tell them it's not our fault. There is no shame. You didn't do anything wrong, because a lot of us are made to feel like we did something wrong. But you're not alone. It's not your fault. You're not a mistake.
Yeah.
You're not a mistake. You're meant to be here. And you are here. And I'm one of those people that I don't want another person to look at their life and, because I do that to myself. It's funny. It's easy to give advice, but it's hard to take our own
Absolutely.
advice. So I have a hard time even taking my own advice, but you're not a mistake. You're beautiful. You belong here, no matter who your parents are, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
That you're not alone. There's a lot of us. Unfortunately, I wish we weren't a big club.
Right.
But it's with this DNA technology, which our parents never fathomed would exist.
I know. It is.
And I just don't want them to feel the way I feel. I don't want them to feel ashamed, or like they were, I mean, I do that all the time. It's like, God, did my mother even want me? I mean, it doesn't matter. She had me, and I know she did love me. But you do feel things, and I don't want them to feel that way. I'm not telling them how to feel, but it's just like, you're not a mistake.
Right.
It's not your fault. You should not be ashamed. You didn't do anything wrong. And there are those of us here that understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I realize a lot of people have a happier ending than most. Some don't have a happy ending.
Right.
Some have in between. But I would definitely recommend counseling. Mm-hmm. I do go through the support group. I read other people's things. Sometimes I comment. I have shared some of my story. And I go to these meetings because it helps to be with other people that understand. But I personally have to go to private counseling. I go once a week.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shame in seeking out counseling to help you get through these hurdles, especially if you have a family that's not being supportive. You really need to get that help. And, it's their own personal choice if they want to share their story with the world or not, whether they share it with their family, whoever they share it with, friends. I mean, a lot of my friends don't know, and extended family don't know. It's your story.
Right.
I know a lot of people have pressure on them not to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's
like
very us.
Common. Yep.
Yeah, don't talk about it. Let's just forget it happened and just be happy with what you've got. But it's your story.
Right.
And I don't think you should allow anybody else to dictate to you how your story is going to unfold and who you share it with. I think that's our right. I know that this might get a lot of flack from some people, but I think we have the right to share our story the way we want. And I don't think it's not because I want to humiliate anybody or hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody, but it's very cathartic.
Well, don't you think that I wonder if not everybody, but the more it were shared and talked about, that eventually the shame around it might evaporate entirely for this particular community.
Yeah.
Like the humiliation would be lifted for the people that feel like they are being humiliated by someone telling their story, telling the story.
And it might
if they found, I just think about that. Like if all, like the category of women who it was from infidelity and they're ashamed about that.
Yeah,
what would it have been like at some point if they had known that there were all these other women out there who also had children from infidelity?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be some way that we can change the cycle.
Well, I think now with the younger generation, that cycle will be changed.
Yeah. Well, I think this is probably a time in history.
Yeah, because the internet transition.
Yeah, but
my parents, from their time, that was a no-no.
Oh, yeah. No.
Even through the 60s, 70s, even the early 80s, it was
80s,
still shameful. Yeah, it was still shameful. I think now people can marry or do whatever and nobody cares anymore. But in the old days, it was very different stigma. And, a woman was, very hard for women.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's an age that you would have just I'm just curious if there is an age that would have been like the best age for your mother to tell you?
That's really hard because you think about it, everything we go through in life, when would it be a good time? I never thought of that. That's actually quite the question because I've never really thought about that. I don't know if there would have been a good age. I mean,
I don't either for myself. Don't know. I can't.
No.
I can't ever.
I wouldn't have wanted to be, right before she dies, and then she dies,
right? And then you really don't have answers.
And then I have, and I'm like, what? I'm just losing you, and now I find, your dad wasn't your dad, and then she passed away, and I have nothing. So maybe when I was going through all my struggles in my 20s, she was the type that you keep your problems to yourself. I don't blame her. She was raised with that. That's how, anybody out there who's British knows that you don't
so British.
Talk about your feelings. You don't share. You keep it to yourself, especially old days. My grandmother, it was always...
You keep calm and you carry on.
You carry on, stiff upper lip. We don't discuss our problems. You don't show the emotions. You just carry on. That is what it is. I kind of like that's how we were raised. But thinking it might have been maybe easier when I was a little child. Because I think children, this is just my personal opinion, are a little more adaptable. It would have been a shock, but I think I could have, because I was so young when my father died.
Yeah.
I think maybe it would have been easier for me to grasp. Not right away after he died, but to slowly introduce me to this man.
Right. If this,
like, this is my friend. He was a friend of your father's, and But I have to tell you, I've had trust issues with men my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've never had a good male role model. Not my brothers, not my dad. My grandfathers all died. My one grandfather died when I was a baby. The other one died before I was ever born. Mm-hmm. I haven't really had a male role model, not even an uncle, anybody that I could turn to. So I had a really hard time. I still do. I have to be honest, trusting men. I have a really hard time. And this is going to sound awful. I didn't even trust Jesus because he was a man. I
don't think that sounds awful.
No, I couldn't see him. I couldn't see as God, Jesus, the Son of God. I couldn't see that. I just saw there was a man, and he's a man, so how can I trust him too? So that's the only reason I didn't convert sooner, is I had and then when my mother died, I blamed God. Because you took her. Because I told God, if you take my mother, this is going to tear the family apart, and we're all going to go our separate ways. I knew she was our glue. I knew it would happen, and it did. So I've had man issues my whole life. So maybe even if she had introduced me to him when I was young, I might have kind of stood it back and been cautious of him, because I've had a lot of daddy
and there's no way to know if he knew about you.
They said they don't know if he knew. One of them said, I don't think he did, but I don't know.
There's no way to know.
No, anybody, all his siblings. He was the oldest. He had a sister, and he had 4 or 5 brothers. So they were 6. Yeah, 6. He had brothers. He was the oldest, but they all passed away. And I think they might have been able to answer that question.
Right.
But they all died too. The last one died in I think 2004. It was his sister. So, I don't think even they could answer if he knew or not. I want to believe that he didn't know, because that makes it easier for me.
Right.
But I just want people to understand that it's, I have the trust issues and the issues because of everything I've gone through in my life. A lot of trust issues and a lot of heartache and a lot of hard things and because of our family, we weren't allowed to discuss it. And the MPE just opened all those wounds.
Right.
The not parent expected opened all these old wounds that just festered in me for years.
All the stitching.
Yeah, because I've kept it all secret. You're coming from a person who's had a lot of emotional trauma.
Right.
In her life.
Well, I think that's part of the struggle, and that for both sides of the coin, or whatever the issue, that people deserve to know, but this information can just rip you wide open.
It has brought back memories that I have repressed.
Yeah.
Because that was a source of contention with my therapist, because she would ask me stories. I would start telling a story, and she'd say, well, then what happened? And I'd be, I don't know. And she'd go, what do you mean you don't know? You were there. And I'm like, I have blackouts. I wipe out
very common. Yeah.
things in my life. And she goes, but you were 12, or you were this age. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is how far I remember. And don't ask me anything from that point, because I can't tell you. My next memory is far away. And I've noticed that through my life. That's what I did when I was young. And this MPE situation has opened up my memories.
Yeah, it just flooded you.
And I don't want to remember, to be honest with you. Some of the things I'm now remembering are really distressing.
Yeah, really dark.
Very dark. That I couldn't remember. And now all of it's hitting me. So
well, that's why you had forgotten.
Well, yeah,
your brain didn't want to.
And I got to be honest with you, I really don't want to remember. Yeah. But she told me it's better to get it out. But she doesn't push me. If I want to talk about it, I do. If I don't want to talk about it, I don't. But what I have told her, she is amazed I've made it this far without having a nervous breakdown.
Right.
But some of the repressed memories of when I was a child and other things that happened, and that I just pushed it out of. And this MP situation just totally opened up memories I don't want.
Yeah.
And that's why I said about people getting therapy, getting help, because maybe it'll unlock memories for them too. Oh yeah. I still remember now. I can see things of what my mom or dad said that now make sense, that didn't make sense then.
Right.
And as a kid, you blow it off.
Right, like in a movie where the last scene is a spin into the other perspective so that the whole mystery is solved.
Yeah.
Or something.
Because now I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, how could I be so dumb? And my siblings, you know, haven't helped me at all. I mean, I know my two
You weren't being dumb.
Well, my two eldest brothers know. I know at least one of them knows because he talks. Why would he say you just had to dig? I didn't want you to look, and now you know. So now you just. So
Right.
that tells me he knows, but he won't
knew.
tell me anything.
Huh.
He'll take it to his grave too.
And it might be painful for him in its own way. And,
Well-
and I'm not, defending him, but
No, it's okay. It's been pointed out to me that this was their mother too,
right.
and you're saying things about their mother as well. It's not just your mother, and they've shoved their feelings their whole life, and here you are opening up all these old wounds, and they're not in a place like where you're revisiting and trying to go through therapy and get well. They don't want to go there.
Right, they've got their own coping mechanisms that have worked just fine. Thank you
Which
very
is
much.
stuffing it.
Mm-hmm.
Stuffing it. And, yeah, I mean, and I'm afraid that I'm more Americanized.
Do you feel like you look at other families now, at their children or their family pictures, and wonder about them, or does it? Because I don't. I haven't gotten.
No.
I don't think that I do. But it just occurred to me right now.
I can't get that far. I'm still trying to deal looking at
Right.
my own family
I mean, I
photos,
just wonder if, like, my whole life, if there were people looking at my family and being like,
wondering if you...
wondering or just or feeling like they knew, but
Yeah.
it didn't.
She can't be his.
There's
Look
no
at
way.
it. It's a
Look at that
different
hair
eye.
or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like there's
Well,
no.
no,
Look,
I have different
look
hair.
at that. Look at that nose. You know, like there's just. But I think of people all the time who don't look like their siblings.
No, I
Like
mean...
it's not that crazy to not look like your siblings.
No.
But it becomes an important variable when
I do
this is
look
the
different.
equation.
I have similarities because we have the same mother.
Yeah.
But I do have a very different nose. I do, and I have different texture hair. My hair is more textured. This is with skinny serum and oils, and I have very poofy, wavy hair, and they all have thin, straight, just hair.
Uh-huh.
They have to get perms to get even
Right.
this. Then this is with me blow drying it down.
Yeah,
and
it's very
putting-
thick hair.
Yeah, and I'm the only one that has it. None of them have this hair. They all have, like my mother and my dad always, they had that really thin, straight hair with no curl, no nothing.
So really, everybody's just jealous, is what you're saying.
No, but everything else
It's all
is...
about your hair.
No, and I do really, when you look at a picture of my biological father and you look at me when I wasn't quite so heavy, that's another thing. I've been eating to stuff my emotions. So I was trying to lose weight, and then, as I told you, I
Right.
recently went through that loss. But if you look at the pictures, you can see that I am his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me, no, you look like us, the other family. They said, you
Yeah.
look like one of us.
I want you to go out there and meet them.
I do. One of them, some of them live near my sister who lives in one of the Midwest states. So she'll be very angry if I identify her. So
I'm not even going to ask.
I hope they do it out there because she lives there, and that way I can visit them and visit, even though she doesn't like talking about it. It just, I feel scared to go on my own, and nobody in my family wants to. When I say in my family, I'm referring to my husband and my
Right.
children. They don't want to go. So,
Not even your husband?
no.
You can't make him.
It's better if he doesn't.
Okay. Okay.
He doesn't know what to say or how to handle this at all. So we don't even talk about it. He listened for the first 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And he does try to be understanding. And he disagrees with how everything's been handled, and he's very angry at my siblings. I don't want to make it sound like my husband's not supportive, but I don't even know what to say to me.
Right. There's just a limit. There's a limit.
Yeah, and he
there's a
doesn't-
limit to his empathy or
Yeah, because his siblings are
a
very
limit to his
different.
understanding. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like they're super close, but they don't hate each other's guts.
Right.
And they're not, it's just different. He can't fathom what's happened to me. And we've been married over 24 years now, and he's seen a lot. And so all my children are adults. And I think they're just afraid if they go meet this family, they're going to be like the current family, and they want nothing to do with my family I grew up with.
Like that was enough for them.
They
They don't want to risk it anymore.
You know, they were already on the edge with my family because of other things that have happened. And now they just like don't want anything to do with my family that I grew up with.
Okay.
For their reasons. And their valid reasons.
Right. I believe you.
Yeah.
They can have boundaries for any reason.
I'm only referring to my siblings.
I know.
Not, they can do whatever with their cousins, but even them, they don't really reach out. It's so complicated. I don't want to make anybody sound bad. My nieces and nephews are not bad. It's nothing like that. It's been a very complicated, this just kind of was the icing on the cake. And they see how much I've really grappled.
Yeah. It's so hard to watch a parent in pain.
Yeah. And my daughter can't deal with, she doesn't want to talk about it at all with me. She says, no, it's your thing. And it's not that she doesn't love me, she does.
Of course.
My daughter does love me, but to them it's no big deal because she never met my parents. Because my mother died before she was born. So my son did know my mom. But for him, that's still his grandma.
Yeah. How old is your daughter?
She's 22.
Yeah, that might change. That might be interesting because that might change for her as she gets older.
Yeah, my oldest is 36.
And understanding of self can change so much from 22 into your 30s that she might have a different understanding of what you're going through later. But
well, I have 2 biological children, but I also have stepchildren. So it's funny, my stepchildren are a little more understanding, which is funny to me. My own biological children don't really like to discuss it. But it's because they see how upset I get.
Right, it makes you upset. It just goes to show that you just have no idea what this topic, you just have it's like an unfathomable thing. And then you have, which includes not knowing how people are going to react.
I don't want to make my mother sound bad or a hypocrite. She had a hard life with my dad. And this is what I want to believe. I want to believe that she was looking for the love she didn't feel she was receiving. And she just looked in the wrong place.
Sure.
Maybe she loved him, maybe she didn't. I don't know if it was a one-night stand. I don't even know if it was consensual. But this is what I need to believe for my own sanity. That she was looking, and I was told he was quite the womanizer. And he was handsome when he was young. So I'd like to believe, and my mother was very pretty. So I'd like to believe that maybe he just said all the right things and it's what she needed to hear, and maybe they both got something out of it.
Right. Maybe it was one wonderful night.
It could have been one wonderful night, or...
everybody has secrets. Our parents have secrets.
We have secrets.
We have secrets, yeah.
We all do, whether it's, what you did in high school or what you've done now, or... I'm becoming more of an open book, though. I'm becoming really against secrets, but I believe it's our own choice whether we want to share those secrets. I don't think anybody should feel forced. That is something I would tell other MPEs. If they feel they need to keep it to themselves and they don't want to share it, if it's their personal decision, not because other people are pressuring them.
Right. There's a difference between choosing for yourself or being pressured,
But if it's their own choice, do what's right for you. If you don't want to share, not because other people tell you, don't do it, you do what's right for you. And if it's right for you to share and it's what you want to do for you and your family or whatever, then do it. Don't feel pressured into either direction.
Right.
Sharing, not sharing. And don't feel pressured that you have to know the new family. I do see a lot of people are very frustrated because they're rejected by the old and the new family.
Yeah.
And that was a big fear for me. I didn't want to be rejected by the new family.
Every single possibility is possible.
Yeah, and then some people have been warmingly accepted by the new family and have the wonderful support of their original family. Even their fathers are like... And then there's people that will never know anything.
Yeah. Yep. It runs the whole gamut.
I mean, not everybody has such an emotional story. But, well... That's also, though...
I don't know. I'll let you know when I get to the person that doesn't have an emotional story.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think it's a matter of perspective, and, everybody's circumstances aren't the same, and yet we're all NPEs. And so for that reason, we understand. We all kind of like, what? And there might be people that suspect, but it is different when you actually find out.
Yeah. Yep, actually, yeah.
I always thought, like when all this juicy stuff was coming up and Ken was going to contact me, and I'm thinking my auntie was a bad girl, my oh, what did she do? You know, I said aunt in the beginning, but we always said auntie. So I'm going to revert to the way my auntie was a bad girl, but, you know, and then I found out I was, you know, I always
You were
thought
the
I
proof
was,
in the pudding.
I thought, oh, I could accept it. It's no big deal. You know, I mean, oh, whoever it is, you know, I'll accept them with open arms. And it was me.
Yeah, no, I think that is a common experience. Is the suspicion is very different from the scientific fact. Knowing just feels really different. It lands in a very different place in your body.
My mother taught me a valuable lesson that I never forgot. We had the same parent, but for some reason it didn't catch on with them. But my mother always told me, everybody that's heard me say this will know it's me.
Yeah,
is always take the high road. She told me no matter what happens, hold your head high. Always act with class. Don't let people drag you down. And you take that high road. And you be kind and you be nice. And no matter what bad stuff people throw at you, you put a smile on your face and you hold your head up and you walk out of that room with class and dignity and you take the high road. And I have tried to do that my entire life. That has been my theme. If my kids hear me, my husband, my family, they're going to say, oh, that's her. You know, here she goes again with the high road. And even my nail lady knows it, you know, because I've told her, take the high road, take the high road. And it's something that I never forgot. And I still wish she were here. Because if she were here, if she were alive, in the beginning I probably would have been, you know, off my rocker. But I'd like to believe, and I believe I would do this, is can you just tell me the truth and we'll walk through this together?
Right. Well,
I still love you.
You can be angry about a lie and still love the person and wish they were here. It's
I'd
possible
rather
to hold all those things. It's hard. I mean,
and I wouldn't tell her horrible things. I probably would have. The first few days I was really upset, so I probably would have said a lot of bad things, but I would have apologized. But I'd like to believe that if she were here, that I still love you, and let's just go through this together and just tell me the truth, and let's see what we can, you know, you're still my mom and, you know, everything. I'd like to believe I'd handle it that way.
Yeah.
I did tell her that in my own way, just talking to her after I was done with my ranting. You know, I still love you. You're still my mom. I had my mother on such a pedestal. I had to bring her down and be human again.
Right.
I had her
on. That'll do it.
You know, my therapist even told me, you had her close to the Messiah there. And I was like, you know, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, you're right. And so now my mother is back to being, well, even though she's gone, she's back to being a normal human again. And I forgive her. And I just hope she had some happiness with him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's like...
She had a very unhappy life back then. She was happy later when she remarried and stuff. She was really happy, but I want to believe. I just want to believe that they had love of something. I know it could have been a one-night stand or something, but I just want to believe that there was something special, and then they had to terminate it.
A one-night stand can feel very special.
Well, yeah, if you haven't had love and somebody tells you you're beautiful,
you know, who knows?
And you just needed that moment of feeling something.
They also can be terrible, but
yeah,
it could have been.
But I'd like to believe it was something positive. I'd like to believe that I'm something positive that came out of it. If she hadn't done it, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
I wouldn't exist. I just hope I wasn't the cause of her nervous breakdown.
You were not. There's no way that you could have been.
I hope not, because it was before I was born.
Because that would be her choices. Her choice, you know, I mean...
But she's also away after I was born. My grandmother, they told me she was having a hysterectomy, which she did have a hysterectomy, but she was gone a couple of times. And I really believe, you know, I tried to get her state records from Camarillo. She was resting. I tried to get her records, yeah. She'd be gone. I was with my grandmother, like, the whole summer, and I would cry and cry, and my grandmother took me to the house to show me that she wasn't there, nobody was there.
Oh.
I've tried to get the state records to find out because of my own morbid curiosity, but maybe it's better that I couldn't get them. You know, I gave them everything they needed, but and Camarillo doesn't exist as we know it now. It's a school, but I learned how to get the records, and I did ask for them. I submitted them, and I gave them all the information they needed, and I know they want you to pay, and I told them I'm her daughter, I have proof, and I gave them their social security, the date of birth, everything, but possible admission dates, but
no dice.
They did not give me one single thing.
Ugh, it's frustrating.
I wanted to know if I was the cause. That's why. It was important to me to know.
I don't know anything really, but I feel 100% confident that you were not the reason.
You think so? Because it haunts me.
I really am. I'm absolutely positive.
I didn't want her to be unhappy because of me. I just want to believe. I just hope.
Yeah.
That she wasn't. I'm hoping those trips that she made were not because of me.
They weren't because of you. They might have been because she had 6 kids and an alcoholic husband. Yeah. And she was really tired and dealing with depression. But none of that puts the weight on you.
I know. It's funny how I carry that.
Yeah.
I do carry that guilt. And it's funny because I know I didn't do anything wrong, but I feel like, did I just bring that much more friction between her dad and I? And did I bring that much more friction between my siblings? And I just felt like such an outsider. And it was so hard. And I love her. And I hope she had some happiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She deserved happiness. And she deserved to have joy. She had a positive outlook on life, even through all her bad circumstances. But I just didn't want to be part of her falling, of all that agony that she went through. Because my mother went through a hell of a lot. Yeah, but I mean, I'm telling you all this, and I know it goes beyond our NPE subject, and it's more like I'm doing a therapy session with you now.
But this is all so much a part of your story, and it's all important. So,
and I've only touched the surface.
Right. I mean,
that's why I'm in therapy.
I get it. I really get it. So yeah, and this is
a lot of this stuff I blocked out.
And I think this is what we're talking about is like this just it blows you open. So it's like, how do you have people come in? You can't just tell me your NPE story because that doesn't. There is no just NPE story. There's people just have no idea what this NPE what these tests can reveal. And I'm not saying that there's a solution to that. I do know that there's people that really want all these testing companies to have like more warnings on the.
I want warnings.
Yeah, and I do. I agree that there should be warnings, but I don't know a single person that would read those warnings and then think, that could be me.
No, I know. You didn't think it would be you.
Right. Like, nobody thinks it's going to be them. So they read the warnings and they go, well, that will be really hard for someone else. But I just want to know what county in Ireland, like, we're from.
Yeah.
So I don't, so, yeah, this is just a whole new frontier.
Do you remember when you asked, what would I also say?
Uh-huh.
If I was to speak to somebody who hadn't done the testing yet, I think I would probably tell them, unless you're really strong in who you are, and if you have any suspicions, I just don't think, I would probably try to talk them out of doing it.
If you have any suspicions, yeah.
Especially. I don't know. I mean, but curiosity gets people.
I know.
But I have to tell you, I would tell people, don't do it. Because it changed everything for me, and it opened up a whole Pandora's box of secrets and darkness and things that I had tucked away in my psyche because it was my survival.
Yeah.
That is now coming forward, and I really don't like it because I have terrible nightmares.
Yeah.
Now I have nobody, and I'm all alone, and I can't. And it's like sometimes I have no clothes on, and I'm like, why am I dreaming this way? And I talk to my psychologist about it, and she goes, because you feel vulnerable, exposed,
you're raw.
and you can't, and you don't know where you belong, and you can't find your way home because you don't know where home is.
Yeah.
And you're, it's about your security. And these are things that people don't, I never would have thought of this stuff. It's just a dumb DNA test. I just want to find out how much British or Irish I am. You know, what's the big deal? Why is everybody making such a big deal about it? This should be fun. I took it as a whole fun experience.
So, I mean, I think everybody, not everybody, but...
That'd be so cool. You know, oh, look how much...
99% of everybody thinks it's... I mean, that's how it's advertised. This is just a fun thing. Well, this is...
If they hear it.
Thank you so much. This has been... I can't believe you just came in so open-minded and open-hearted and so vulnerable to just share so much with me.
Yeah.
I really am grateful, and it is really...
Why, thank you.
I think I'm so sorry for the pain that you're enduring, but I do know that you're also doing a service right now, sharing your story.
Yeah. I don't want other people to feel this way. I don't want them to feel alone and isolated, and if you can't talk to your family, you know... They can go to the portal.
Yeah.
And become part of, I'm sure you'll talk about that, or you have. Yeah, and I just don't want people to feel like they have to suffer alone in silence.
Well, we're starting it. It's up to us.
Yeah.
You know, if we want things to...
Yeah, and who knew there were so... I mean, you always know there's this hint of suspicion, but, you know, they all talk about how men cheated during the war. Well, they had to cheat with somebody, and it was our mothers.
Right,
so,
turns out...
You know, there we go.
Turns out we know those somebodies very closely.
Sounds crass, but, you know, it's the truth.
Anything else you want to say that you definitely want in the podcast before I turn it off?
I don't know. Got so much to say, and
I know.
so much. I mean, I covered so much. I think
you did.
I think for now that's good.
You can always call me.
Hello, I'm back. It's Eve. I'm so thankful for Barbara's willingness to share, and I just want to wrap today's episode up by encouraging anyone who is struggling in any way, but especially because of their surprise DNA results, to please, please, please seek out counseling with a therapist. Psychology Today is a great place to start. They have a website, www.psychologytoday.com. You can also just put into your search engine Psychology Today and see what comes up. Contact me, Eve, at everythingsrelativepodcast.com if you are seeking some guidance about how to find someone for you, and I'll do what I can. But the point is, you do not need to suffer alone, and there are people out there who really want to help. And in the meantime, keep up with what's happening here by following us on social media at Everything's Relative Podcast, subscribing to the show on whatever podcast platform you prefer, and I will be back here in 2 weeks for episode 7. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye. Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis is produced by Kaylin Egan and Eve Sturgis. Eve Sturgis is a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California, but the conversations she has on the podcast are not therapy sessions. Logo design by Ivy McNally and music used with permission by Goodbye the Band.